Okay, hi Pratyusha. So nice to see that you have sent us your first set of essays. Great to see. Let's see what you've written here. The first one is about the enjoyable activity with a child. Let's see what you said. Okay. There has always been a conflict in the parent's mind whether to allow their children for activities other than reading. We can't say that. We can't say allow their children for activities. So we need to rephrase this in some way. Whether to allow their children, or how about whether to push their children towards activities other than reading. That doesn't require a lot of changes, but it certainly makes a lot more sense. I believe that with fun activities, children tend to develop a wide range of skills. This essay will discuss both views. Get rid of about and the. So this essay will discuss both views using examples from sports competition and playing games to demonstrate. Okay, fine. Maybe you don't mean discuss both views. Maybe we'll discuss this view. All right, so let's see what you wrote further. Firstly, reading has numerous benefits. Nevertheless, playing on the game console can develop skills that would be impossible to develop just by reading alone. This is because when playing on consoles, a child can develop cognition by promoting memory, attention, and reasoning. For example, recent studies at Harvard showed that 70% of the drivers who play car racing video games could clear their driving test in their first or second attempt. Therefore, the advantages of playing with game consoles are clear and give an opportunity to a child to progress in the areas neglected by just reading. All right, I like that you began with reading and you ended your paragraph with reading. That's a good thing. It's important to include reading in all of this rather than just focusing on the activities. So that was good, okay? So, secondly, just reading may be a limitation on the child, which shows academic bias to their skill set. All right, I'm not sure what you mean by this. This is due to the fact that in group sports, involved in physical activity develops a child's special awareness. I think you mean spatial, which is spelled differently, and I'm really unclear about what this whole sentence means. This is due to the fact that group sports involve physical activity, thus developing a child's spatial awareness. Maybe this is what you mean. For instance, the British Sports Council noted that more than 60% of the students who participate in sports at an early age are more physically fit. You have to have a comparison here at the age of 55. This indicates that the overall development of the child is linked to sports. Well, okay, but there are some problems here. We're talking about developing skills, okay? You talked about spatial awareness, but you never really developed spatial awareness or any skills. You just talked about being physically fit, which I'm not entirely convinced that being physically fit can be considered a skill, okay? And, also, we're talking about development, and then you all of a sudden start talking about being 55. I kind of have a question mark in my head about this, all right, about the development of this. Let's see. And again, I didn't understand these two first sentences, particularly the first sentence. I didn't really understand. So this paragraph for me needed some work, okay? And then there's one other issue that I want to talk about, but once we finish correcting this. To conclude from the examples and arguments given, I strongly agree that an enjoyable activity plays a very important role on the child's development rather than the beliefs with an F. And I don't understand this. What does that mean in the past ideologies? Why don't you just compare it to reading? That's really what we're talking about. So rather than, let's try it again. I strongly agree that an enjoyable activity plays a very important role on the child's development. Let's see. I strongly agree. How about this? Let's fix it again, okay? I strongly agree that an enjoyable activity plays a more important role in the child's development than reading does. Okay? In the future, there will be a drastic change in the educational system. No, don't start talking about other countries. hang on, there'll be a drastic change in the educational system, full stop. Okay, now what am I trying to tell you? That you don't want to introduce new ideas at this essentially last sentence of your essay. Okay, this is just for you to wrap up the essay, really just kind of summarize what you've already said and not go into any new ideas. What you wrote here, a few countries in China, well, first of all, China is a country, so not a few countries, already started adapting this culture where extracurricular, you meant curricular, activities are given more importance than the academics. All right, that's not what you want to be doing here. So really, you need to just get rid of this section of the text here, okay? So there's some good things happening. You're using the template correctly, and that's great to see. It was on topic, but here I felt you started running into some problems, okay? So let's take a look now at your second essay as well. Okay, so should schools only educate or should they be entertaining as well? Let's see what you said here. Many people argue that the main purpose of school is to educate. However, I strongly, you need an ly here, I strongly believe that entertainment is quite essential in school premises for the overall development of students. This essay will discuss, can't really say this. This essay will discuss, excuse me, this view using examples from sports and mental health to demonstrate points to support arguments. Okay, yeah, I want you to work on this sentence a little bit because it's awkward. Check the template again to see how you can express this a little more clearly and a little more accurately. I also paused here, school premises. Let's see, we don't say in school premises, we say on school premises. But I think you could have been more precise here. I think you could have used a different vocabulary word. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to make your life easy. You really could have just said is quite essential in school. Or you could have said in educational facilities. That would have been nice too if you really wanted to use a different vocabulary word. But school premises, like I said, it's on school premises, and it almost feels like you're talking about the physical location of the school rather than, more theoretically as part of the curriculum. It's a fine difference, but when you are aiming for one of those higher band scores, this is the type of precision that examiners are looking for. So, excuse me, let's move on. Firstly, participating in engaging in physical activities like sports, drama, art, and art, or art, you could have said, enhances the cognitive skills of the children. This is because these activities give them the opportunity to interact, not interaction, with their peers. No, wait, is this a comma or is this a semicolon? Looks like yeah, okay, fine. Which helps them to comprehend their strengths and weaknesses. For example, drawing on the findings from Harvard University, capital U, children who participate in sports and other activities excel in their academics and social life compared to others. All right, now, let's talk about what this essay is talking about. It's talking about entertainment, okay? Let's think for a minute about what entertainment means. It means amusement. It means fun. It means enjoyment, okay? Kind of like a lighthearted, we usually think of entertainment as being comical or really rather invigorating. So what you are talking about here doesn't really draw on any of those interpretations of the word entertaining. What you really talked about here was simply extracurricular activities, which don't necessarily mean that they're entertaining. I hope that makes sense. Now, what do I mean? I mean that if you're involved in competitive sport at school, this can be exciting, this can be thrilling, this can be kind of like an adrenaline rush, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entertaining. When you're playing a sport like this, you're probably not laughing and saying, oh, yay, how fun this is, okay? And the same thing applies to perhaps drawing or painting, okay? So this is where IELTS is essentially testing your vocabulary to make sure that you understand the differences in these words, all right? Now, I do want to say that you could have talked about sports and drama and art, but you also need to frame it more appropriately, frame it within entertainment. So, maybe like artistic games or group role plays, like pantomiming, or things like that. Okay, if you're talking about entertainment. All right. So what were you saying here? You were saying that these activities enhance the cognitive skills. They allow them to interact with their peers. Now, I didn't really understand this. Because you're interacting with your peers, why do you assume that they comprehend their strengths and weaknesses? And then how does that then relate to this? So, but apart from the fact that I didn't really feel like you were talking about entertainment, I also don't completely feel that your ideas are linked to one another. They feel like very separate ideas that, yes, they have fit in the template, but they don't fit logically to each other. Okay? Does that make sense? So how does interacting with your peers help you understand your strengths and weaknesses? And then what does any of that have to do with this, that these kids who did sports and other activities excelled in their academics and social life? Like, I just don't understand the connection between your ideas, okay? And that's really important for your coherence and cohesion score. All right, let's look at the next paragraph, though. Secondly, children nowadays experience more pressure, isolation, no focus, and no concentration, which leads to depression. This is because of today's, you need an apostrophe here, today's educational system, which is unfortunately responsible for putting pressure on the children's minds. To achieve high scores with an S, students usually study more than 12 hours, more than, not that, which can isolate them from society. Due to this, not these, due to this, children may avoid other sides of life, leading to disinterest in studies and frustration, according to according to a World Health Organization report. India has the highest suicide rate in the world for the 15 to 29 age group. It stands at 35.5 per 100,000 people. Okay, therefore it is equally important to educate, with no D, children in other activities in order to achieve high goals. All right, this definitely feels very off topic. Like you've completely gone in another direction and you're not answering what you're supposed to be answering here. Okay? So in other words, what you've done here is you've just talked about the fact that I guess what you're saying is that when schools only educate, it leads to this. So let's see. Do you know what the problem is with this? Let me explain to you if I can. It's partially this first word in the paragraph. Let me explain to you what I mean. You started here firstly, and then you went to secondly in the next paragraph. So what that leads us to believe is that you're going to be focusing on one side of the argument, and then you have one paragraph dealing with one aspect, and then you have a second paragraph dealing with another aspect of this same side. In fact, that's not what you've done here. You have looked at the positives of these activities in school, and then you've looked at the negatives of what happens when you have this only educational school. Okay? Now, that's not entirely wrong. I'm not going to say that that's the wrong way to develop it, even though at the first glance it felt like it was off topic. I could see how this could actually work, but you need to make some changes. So essentially you are discussing both views, okay, and you're saying what you disagree with. However, you need to make some changes here. So it's not a firstly and a secondly. It's essentially an on the one hand, on the other hand. Okay? And also, I would have put this paragraph first because this isn't the side you support. And so it's usually important to start like that. Start with the side that you don't support. Say what's wrong with these education-only schools and how, they're not helping our children and so forth, okay? Let's see. It also would have been important that No, you did that. That's fine. So that's how I would have started. Okay, on the one hand, and then talk about all of this. Okay, and then you could have said, on the other hand, when children have more entertaining activities in the classroom, this leads to more engagement. It enhances the cognitive skills of children. For example, when math is taught in the classroom through games and other educational playtime, children are more engaged and score 35% higher on, I don't know, standardized mathematics tests. Okay, so something like that would have been good, okay? And then you could also talk about how stress is reduced through, you know, play activities and games and so forth and so forth. Okay, so that's kind of how I would have done this, and it would have worked, but it does need some changes. Okay, so in conclusion, it is important to explore the other side of life with more entertainment and opportunities to lead a happy life. It is also proven that schools should be entertaining in order to improve the overall academic performance. Besides academic, I don't want an apostrophe here. So besides academics, comma, schools and parents should prioritize, that needs to be a verb and not a noun, the extracurricular activities. Okay, get rid of the here. It's fine. Okay, so for your first set of essays, there is some work I want you to do. There are some corrections you need to make to these, but you're certainly on the right path, and it's a good starting point. Okay, so well done. What I need you to do now is correct these essays based on my suggestions, return them back to us, create an error correction list, mistakes on one side, and then the corrected version next to it. And then, of course, another set of essays, okay? Try to do this all within the next day or so you can really apply everything you've been learning. I'll be waiting for your next set of essays, so good luck with them.